I can't express how excited I am to finally say I am bringing you week 1 must start and must sit players. We're here. We finally made it. I'm going to talk about 9 players on today's video from every position. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I'm going to tell you players that I love to start and that I would personally sit. Might be controversial. Maybe they're in your lineup. I might look to sit them. So 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and then a couple sits as well. Let's get straight to it. My favorite start of the week, I would honestly say probably at any position. This is my favorite start of the week. That would be J.K. Dobbins versus the Houston Texans. Last year, not a single team gave up more fantasy points per game to running backs than the Houston Texans. Okay? If I could single-handedly pick a matchup for my running back in fantasy football, it would be the Houston Texans. I would have the Houston Texans face my running back every single possible week I could. Now, I understand the Texans are an improved team. They're young. They got Will Anderson. However, they're still young, and they're still going to take some time for them to get acclimated to the NFL game. Meanwhile, you have the new look Ravens, who have added a ton of offensive weapons. They should be up huge in this game, which should allow J.K. Dobbins to feast on the ground in the second half onwards. He'll obviously be involved in the first half, but like closing out the game, Dobbins should have plenty of opportunities in this game. I'm predicting 15 plus points in week 1 for J.K. Dobbins. Reminder, when Dobbins came back, remember last year he had that cleanup surgery in his knee? From week 14 onwards, when he came back from that injury, or that surgery rather, he was so freaking good. He played 4 or 5 games in that span, and he led the league in rushing. 397 yards in that span. That was first, and he missed a game. Yards per attempt, he was first with 7 yards per attempt, which is a ridiculous number in the NFL. That's a good number in college, ridiculous in the NFL. He was 9th in yards after contact per attempt, and he had the 3rd best breakaway percentage, runs of over 15 yards. Start him with extreme confidence. And if you're someone who likes player props and you want a really good prop this week, I am personally betting the higher number on Underdog's Pick'em player props, 58.5 rushing yards for J.K. Dobbins. I'm betting the higher. If you want to bet with me and you want free, let's say $100, go ahead and use our promo code LAND. Check out the pinned comment. There's a direct link. But if you sign up with our promo code LAND, we got you. If you deposit, let's say $50, you get $50. If you deposit $100, you get $100. Your deposit is matched up to $100. So get some free money and start making some bets. Go ahead and tweet me what bets you make. I'm very curious to see what you guys are up to out there. I love some bets I see on Underdog this week. All right, the second start, let's go to the wide receiver position. And let's talk about a name that's been disrespected all offseason. And I'm ready for him in week 1 to remind people how damn good he is. Chris Godwin at the Minnesota Vikings. I'm sorry, I should not have done that. I mean, yeah, you might even turn the video off right now. Last year, the Vikings gave up the 2nd most points to fantasy wide receivers on a per game basis. Their defense was absolutely atrocious last year. Only the Detroit Lions gave up more yards to opposing offenses per game. They added Byron Murphy, the Vikings did. However, I believe Byron Murphy will be lined up against Mike Evans on the outside, leaving Chris Godwin to dominate in the middle of the field. So they added Byron Murphy, that's great. But they also lost Dalvin Tomlinson in free agency, the Vikings. They traded away Zadarius Smith to the Cleveland Browns. Godwin is in a great position to dominate a defense that's going to be just as bad as it was last year. Now, speaking of props, the receiving prop for Godwin on Underdog right now is 56.5 yards. I'm adding that to my slip personally as choosing the higher. I think he will get higher than 56.5 receiving yards. I know Baker's there, but this is a fantastic matchup, and I anticipate the Vikings putting up a ton of points, meaning the Bucs are going to need to answer. So again, go ahead and check out the promo code we have in the pinned comment to get your deposit matched. Okay, the third start, let's go to the tight end position. Man, this is a great start. This is such a good start if you ended up with this guy. This might have been your last pick at the tight end spot, but he's going to dominate in week 1. That is Tyler Higbee at Seattle. Last year, the Seahawks gave up the 2nd most points to fantasy tight ends per game. And at the time of recording this video, I do not believe that Cooper Kupp will play in week 1. The latest report from Ian Rappaport, I'll read it to you. Basically saying that Cooper Kupp was in Minnesota today, visiting with a noted body specialist to further understand his hamstring issue. He goes on to say, while there is no firm word on his status, exercising caution for week 1 is the likely outcome. It's a long season and they don't see a reason to put him out there week 1. I kind of agree. Like, I don't think we're going to see Cooper Kupp after that setback there in week 1. That is going to leave a ton of vacated targets for both Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee. Higbee is one of those players that just went completely under the radar this entire offseason, but he's going to return value on where you drafted him this year, undoubtedly. It's a great matchup, and Stafford could easily end up targeting Higbee 7, 8, 9, 10 times, depending on how the game goes. Keep in mind, Tyler Higbee was the tight end 6 in fantasy football last year. So you could start him last year. This year, it shouldn't be any different. Okay, especially in week 1. Excuse me. Okay, the 4th start. We'll go back to the running back position. Now, if you're one of those unfortunate souls who drafted Jonathan Taylor early and he's not available, or you have a running back who's injured or a player who's injured, if you need a spot start, I got a really good one for you. That is Raheem Mostert at the Los Angeles Chargers. Last year, the Chargers gave up the 7th most points to fantasy running backs on a per game basis. And let's think about this. Jeff Wilson's on IR. Myles Gaskin was cut. He's in Minnesota. Devon Achane, really fun rookie to watch. Shoulder injury right now. Salvon Ahmed, who was good in preseason, dealing with his own injury. The only competition in this backfield for Raheem Mostert is undrafted free agent rookie Chris Brooks, who, by the way, should be on all your dynasty rosters, okay? Go add him right now. It's a free ad, no risk. But Raheem Mostert will be the guy here in week 1. Both the Chargers and the Dolphins were top 12 in offensive points per game last year. What you want is to target high scoring shootout potential games when you're looking for a spot start. That is what Raheem Mostert has found himself in here right now. I'm extremely confident projecting at least 10 PPR points. I mean, there's a chance he could have a breakout, not a breakout, he's old, but like there's a chance he could hit 20 PPR points. That would not be crazy. He's going to catch a ton of balls and he's going to run the ball a lot for this team on a very good offense. Okay, back to the wide receiver position. One of my favorite starts, one of my favorite buys in Dynasty all offseason, and now he looks like he's going to have a great start of the year. That is Jahan Dotson versus the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, in 2022, the Cardinals gave up the 8th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers. Let's be honest, though. This defense got worse. This team got worse. What did the Cardinals do this offseason? They got rid of Colt McCoy, competent quarterback. They brought in Josh Dobbs, career backup. He might start. It might be a 5th-round rookie in Clayton Tune. They got rid of pretty decent players at pennies in return. They got rid of one of their best cornerbacks in Byron Murphy. All signs are pointing towards this team being absolutely awful. And if Terry McLaurin is not out there week 1 because he's dealing with his turf toe, Jahan Dotson could be a top 15 finish, genuinely top 15 to 20 finish. Even if Terry plays, Dotson is going to be a great flexing option for anyone out there who has him. He is an absolute must start in my eyes. And the last start of the week before we get to some sits. By the way, I'll get to my 6th start, which is a quarterback. I'm excited for him. But if you want weekly rankings, if you want a DM to myself for advice all offseason long, I call it the Fantasy Hotline, then go ahead and use our promo code LAND when signing up to the Flock Fantasy website. Check out the pinned comment. But if you want articles to get ahead of your league mates, a whole bunch of great articles from our team over there. If you want weekly rankings, if you want a DM to ask advice at any moment, then go ahead and use our code LAND. Choose the Mother Flocker tier. If you do that, DM us. We'll get you set up, and we appreciate the support. But the last start I have for you guys here in week 1 is a quarterback, and I think he's going to absolutely dominate this year, and it starts in week 1. Justin Herbert. He faces the Dolphins In 2022, the Dolphins gave up the second most points to fantasy quarterbacks on a per game basis. Now, they added Jalen Ramsey, but Jalen Ramsey's not going to be out there. Jalen Ramsey is on the IR to begin the season. So it's not likely that this team is going to improve that much defensively. Both of these offenses, like we talked about before, were top 12 in offensive points per game. We are looking for potential shootouts. Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle versus Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. That's a quarterback that I want to be attached to. You could also put Tua in this, but I like Herbert a little bit more. Herbert's going to have a bounce back year. He was still good last year, but most of his wide receivers were hurt. He's going to have a bounce back year. He's going to be fantastic for fantasy. He's one of like 7 quarterbacks that I could imagine finishing as the quarterback one. He has a great matchup to start. Remember last year, the Chargers got dominated by Tua and this team. They want some revenge. And if you look at Justin Herbert's passing prop on Underdog, it's 282.5 passing yards. You know we are taking the higher on that one. He's going to ball out with all of his weapons absolutely healthy. Okay, and now I've got 3 sits for you. And, you know, some might be controversial. Some you might understand. Let's talk about Kenny Pickett. He faces the San Francisco 49ers in week 1. Last year, the Niners, incredible defense. They gave up the second fewest fantasy points to the quarterback position. And I get it. Kenny Pickett has looked fantastic in preseason. I'm with you. He has looked great. But that was in preseason. That was against sometimes first, a lot of second stringers, guys that probably aren't on NFL rosters anymore. That's a different story to facing one of the NFL's best defenses in the San Francisco 49ers. On average, last year, the 49ers gave up just 14 points per game to quarterbacks in fantasy football. I believe there are many better streaming options out there in leagues. I could rattle off like 20 names right now that I'd rather start here in week 1. All right, the second sit, let's go to the running back spot. You probably drafted this guy late in your draft and you thought, wow, I've got a starter week 1. I really killed it. Maybe you did 0 RB or whatever the case may be. I'm not so certain. I don't think you can start Jamal Williams. I understand he faces Tennessee. I understand Alvin Kamara's out. Kendre Miller's dealing with an injury. But Jamal Williams versus Tennessee is not a good matchup. Last year, they gave up the 4th fewest points to the position. If you're desperate, I get it. If you want 0 RB and you have a lot of flex spots and he's going to be your RB2, I get it. I just think there are better options on almost 95% of people's rosters this week. Since Mike Vrabel took over in Tennessee, they have been one of the league's best rushing defenses. I don't see that stopping this year. If I had Brian Robinson, Cam Akers, Raheem Mostert, those would be guys I'd be starting over Jamal Williams right now. And the last set of players that I would suggest to sit here in week 1, I know we're excited to see them finally in the NFL, but I am sitting all rookie wide receivers, okay? And think about this for a second. I understand we all love drafting rookie wide receivers. I love drafting rookie wide receivers. There's so much potential upside. We think they could hit and they could win leagues for us. However, the right move is to bench them in week 1 until we see their role, their snaps, their targets, their play on the field. For example, Justin Jefferson, remember he had the historic rookie year. He broke records, but did you know that in the first 2 weeks, weeks 1 and 2, he averaged 6 PPR points per game? People were dropping him on the waiver wire, right? You did not want to start him. How about Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave last year? They both barely hit 9 PPR points in week 1. In general, unless you don't have a better option, it's best to let them ride week 1 on the bench and then reassess heading into week 2. So that's the course of action I would take. It's what I would suggest for you guys out there, but man, I'm just so excited for the NFL to finally start. We've been talking about this since it stopped. As a Chiefs fan, very excited for week 1, Thursday Night Football. Why don't you go ahead and tell me in the comment section a bold prediction for week 1? I want to know your boldest prediction in week 1. Something that's going to make people say, no, this guy's an idiot. This guy's a clown. What is that for you? But very excited for the NFL to start. Do me a favor, drop a like, subscribe. If you want starts at the running back position and at the wide receiver position, we have that as well. trade for, trade aways, rankings. I mean, we've got you hooked up over here on the channel. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to see the next video. And all love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.